the recording for this webinar and also the presentation that we are going to see today. Okay, without further ado, let's get started. I hope everyone feels comfortable and that you guys can help us through your questions. The webinar is scheduled to last about 45 minutes. Probably we could go a little longer depending on the questions that you have. So let's get started. For today, we have three main objectives. The main one is understand what is a Global Compact Advanced COP. Second, what are the requirements to achieve that level through your COP? And thirdly, how to submit a COP at that level. Now, this webinar, as I have mentioned already, is focused on the advanced level of COPs. So my presentation has the assumption that the attendees in this webinar have a basic understanding on what is a COP. If at any point during the presentation you feel you don't have enough information about basic knowledge of COP, please feel free to ask the question immediately, because it's very important that you have clarity to understand the rest of the presentation. So just a basic reminder here, what is a COP? A COP is an annual commitment with stakeholders. It's an annual communication with stakeholders. Companies commit to disclose their information on an annual basis. That is like the one-sentence description of a COP. Of course, COP is a whole science. There's a whole department here in the Global Compact working on COP, so it's much more complicated than that. Again, if you have any questions, feel free to ask them. There's a COP policy. When you receive the presentation, you will be able to click on this link and it will take you to the COP policy for you to know all the details about it. So let's talk about the COP levels. Why do we have levels in the COP? That's the first question to be asked. And is we created the differentiation program for COPs with the understanding that giving levels to reporting will encourage companies to make more efforts and to make progress, not only in their implementation, but also in their reporting practices. So the whole idea behind the levels is to encourage companies to always achieve more, and also to give visibility to those companies that are already reporting and implementing sustainability issues at an advanced level. The level is determined by the content of the COP and by a self-assessment, which is a questionnaire. We will talk about it in a little bit. So let's talk about the differentiation levels in the Global Compact. The blue table here, the blue diagram that you see over here, shows which are the levels in the Global Compact. And the levels are directly attached to the requirements of a COP. Our COP policy establishes that the minimum requirements in a COP are three: a CEO statement of continued support, a description of actions in each one of the 4 issue areas, and a measurement of outcomes. This is the basic structure of the COP policy. If a company fails to fulfill one or more of these minimum requirements, they will be achieving the learner category and they will be placed in this level. It's called learner. It's considered a COP that met the minimum standard of being submitted on time. It was submitted online. It means it was publicly disclosed, but it did not meet all of the minimum requirements. So it's placed in the learner category. On the other hand, if a company succeeds in fulfilling all of these requirements in their COP, in their report, they will be placed in the active category. So to sum up, the active category is where a COP is successful in meeting all of the content requirements which are established in our COP policy, which are 3 minimum requirements. Now, an advanced COP, a report that achieves the GC advanced level, is one that not only meets all these minimum requirements, these 3 minimum requirements, but it goes even further and it fulfills advanced criteria. We're going to talk a lot about these advanced criteria in this webinar, but for now, know that this is an advanced criteria. In addition to these 3 basic levels, we have a leadership level. We call it the LEAD program. This is a program that started as a pilot a few years ago and is a program that is by invitation only. Companies are invited to join the LEAD program, and companies that belong to that group are pioneers in the field of sustainability. And they are constantly trying to test new activities and new efforts and see how is more effective to implement and to report on sustainability topics. So that's the LEAD category. Again, it's by invitation only. The 3 levels down here are the ones applicable to all other companies. The LEAD group right now is a very small group. It's 50 companies, and they have their own activities. As I said, everyone else falls into one of these categories. Okay, the system for some reason left my markings from the previous slide. I apologize about that. I'm not sure why that's happening. This slide is showing the participant composition of the Global Compact. What companies in what regions have decided to join the Global Compact. So the bars show the numbers by region. As you can see, Europe leads the pack and is followed by the rest of the regions, MENA being one of the smallest regions. The reason why I wanted to show this chart in this webinar is because the main message that these numbers give is how big of an opportunity this is for companies in regions, in all regions, but mostly the regions where there's less representation, to join the Global Compact. This is an initiative that has been consistently growing for 10 years. Not only we have been growing at an exponential rate, but we continue to be involved in all kinds of activities related to sustainable development through the United Nations in the efforts for a post-2015 development agenda. The private sector has been deeply involved in these whole sustainable development activities, and through that involvement is where the Global Compact continues to grow. Early adopters of the Global Compact will have, and we have seen, we have experimented with our already existing companies, that there is a differentiated advantage of becoming a participant in the Global Compact. So this small number for your specific region, for the attendees of this webinar, is there's an opportunity here of being an early adopter in your region and setting an example for the rest of your peers. That's the message that these numbers convey. Now, on a more regional level, we have the following numbers. In terms, and here we're looking specifically COP, what's the reporting. So in these bars show the levels at which companies have been reporting. This bar over here on the left-hand side shows the numbers for globally, all the companies around the world, and is compared against companies in the MENA region. What this bar shows is that the majority of companies are reporting at the active level. If you remember, the active level is the one where companies are meeting the 3 minimum requirements. And this compares to 81% in the MENA region. This difference in percentages is leveraged here in the GC Learner category. At the global level, less companies are reporting at the learner level. Remember, is the category where companies have missed one or more components. And in the MENA region, more companies are reporting without meeting the minimum requirements. And at the advanced level, we can see globally 7% of companies are reporting at the advanced. In the MENA region, only 4%. Again, this only shows an opportunity for companies in this region to join this very small group of advanced reporters and differentiate themselves from their peers. The pie chart over here shows the situation for the Gulf states. This is the situation. 5% of companies in the Gulf states are reporting at the advanced. This, of course, includes only companies that have signed the Global Compact and that are active participants in the Global Compact. So again, the key message here is the advanced level, which is the main topic of our webinar today, is a key opportunity, is a unique opportunity for companies in this region to place themselves as one step ahead and differentiate yourselves from your peers and competitors. These are the numbers by countries. We don't have any companies right now in Oman. It's the only country that we don't have representation in the area. This pie over here shows how many companies are failing to communicate. This is what I was telling you at the very beginning. I'm assuming you guys have a basic understanding of COP. Please feel free to ask. But basically, when a company fails to submit their report by their deadline, they are placed in a category that's called non-communicating. And that is publicly available. Everybody can see that this company failed to communicate by their deadline. Currently in the Gulf states, we have 32% of participants in the non-communicating category. It's a pretty high number, and ideally we want to raise awareness among companies of how important it is to report by your deadline. Okay, now we're going to see some details of the GC Advanced level. I'm going to pause for a second and ask my colleague Alex if we have any question.
Hi, Anna. The only question we had was whether the recording and the presentation will be shared. And just to confirm, it will indeed be shared at the end of this presentation.
Perfect. Yeah, it will. It will be shared at the end of the presentation. Thank you very much, Alex. It's very disturbing to me to see these lines here. So if you allow me 10 seconds, I will try to do something to correct that. Let me see if maybe we can go to the, no, it's not even the, it's not the file. It's something happened in my computer. I again apologize about that. Let's move on. The GC Advanced level. And regarding to the question that we just received, not only you will receive this presentation, but the presentation is full of information. So you can, if you stand on this link, you can click and it will take you directly to the area in our website where you can find the information. So let's talk about the advanced criteria. The Global Compact wanted to, of course, be inclusive and allowed all companies to report regardless of the level where they are in terms of implementing and reporting on sustainability topics. That's why we created 3 basic minimum requirements that I explained already before. However, we are also very interested in promoting more efforts and trying to push companies to always aim a little higher in terms of sustainability. That's why we have designed our advanced criteria. The advanced criteria came out of a very extensive consultation process. This is done with experts, with other agencies, with our companies, etc. And after this whole process, which by the way takes years to complete, we came up with 21 advanced criteria. The criteria are revised every couple of years, but for the most part they remain the same. In order for a company to achieve the advanced level, they must meet all 21 criteria, all of them. If they meet 20, that company will not, that report will not achieve the advanced level. It will only achieve that level by fulfilling the 21 criteria. Each criterion is accompanied by suggested best practices. We're going to talk a lot about that in a moment. And at least one best practice must be fulfilled in order to fulfill the criterion. We're going to talk a lot about that in a moment. So this is an example of one of our criterion. I wanted to use my highlighter again, but seeing what happened here, I'm afraid to do so. I'm not going to do it again. I have selected, just for the sake of an example here, criterion 8 is a criterion that promotes evaluation in labor, in the area of labor. So what you see here in blue on the top row, this is the criterion. That is one of the 27 that I just mentioned. That is the criterion. Each criterion, as I mentioned before, has best practices associated with it. In this case, we have about 7 best practices here. They are all associated with the criterion. Remember, I just said if a company wants to be in the GC advanced level, what is it that they must do? They must fulfill all 21 criterion. So how do they fulfill the criterion? By meeting at least one of the best practices. Of course, if the company meets the 7 best practices that we recommend, great. That's even more advanced and is even more recognition for the company. However, the minimum standard is that at least one best practice. If the company doesn't click any of these, if they don't meet any of the best practices, then the criterion is not met. I hope that's clear. It's very important. So if you guys have any question on that regard, please feel free to ask. Now, what we were talking here is about the formalities and the logistical aspects of the criterion without going into the content. Now, let's see a little bit of the content, what this criterion talk about. So the criteria are divided in 4 main areas. The first one is third-party verification. The second one is implementing the 10 principles. The third one is supporting broader UN goals and issues. And the last one is governance. So these are the 4 main pillars on which the criteria rest upon. I'm going to discuss, again, here, when you receive the presentation, you can click on this link over here, and it will take you directly to the description of the criteria and the associated best practices. So let's take one of these each at a time and understand a little bit what is the content of the criteria. Third-party verification. The idea for these criteria to be in there is to measure the accuracy and the completeness of information in a COP as assessed by a credible third party. This criteria, when we were this criterion, when we were developing the whole framework, was somewhat contested because some companies felt that it is indeed difficult for any company to get the third-party verification. One of the main issues that sustainability reporting faces is that because it is not a fully regulated space, in some countries regulation has been introduced, but for the most part it's very low regulation around the sustainability disclosure of information, and wherever it is regulated, regulations are very new, and companies are just starting to get into this topic, this field of sustainability reporting. Because it's mainly a voluntary activity, the disclosure of sustainability information, it has led us to have practices that create some conflicts. So, for example, when a company discloses financial information, they are, in most markets, they are required not only to disclose complete information, but they are also required to have that financial information to be audited by a third party that is capable of assuring that the financial information disclosed is accurate and that stakeholders can trust on those numbers that the company is disclosing. That is not the case with sustainability information. A company can disclose any information they want to, they can hide any information they want to, and stakeholders are left with some information that might be credible, some other information that might not be credible. So in order to address this issue of credibility, comparability, quality, and quantity of sustainability information, the Global Compact decided, after a whole process of consultations, etc., decided that this requirement of third-party verification was necessary for our advanced level. So companies that want to achieve the advanced level are required to have some sort of third-party verification. Of course, the highest standard in terms of third-party verification is assurance by qualified companies like auditors, for example. There are some consultancies that do this assurance as well. That's the highest standard. Again, we realize that hiring an auditor might not be feasible for all countries. We are aware, for example, SMEs in developing countries, they might not have the resources to do this. That's why we developed a whole system of best practices, which are listed here. The font is rather small, so I don't expect you to read these at this moment, but I put it in this presentation just to show you all the options that we have given companies. If they can go for the highest standard of hiring an auditing firm, great. That again will be a higher level. But if companies can only do a review by stakeholders, of a peer review, those are practices that we also value and accept as part of the advanced level. I'm going to ask, are there any questions at this point specifically about what we talked before or verification?
Yes, so we do have two questions. The first being, can a participant move their COP essentially from learner to advanced? And technically, yes. The idea would be, before you move to an advanced report, you would want to download the criteria, look through it, and determine if you feel that your report meets these criteria. So technically, the answer is definitely yes. And the second question here, and I may need your help on this one, is a participant is asking for names of authorized third-party for the third-party external assessment?
Exactly. Okay, perfect. That's a great question. Thank you very much for that question. What I will do is I will modify this slide before sending it to include here our publication on third-party verification. We issued earlier this year, so it's a very recent, fresh publication talking about third-party verification and giving you all the examples of companies or mechanisms that you can use for this. You might understand that us working with a wide range of companies, we cannot name one or two assurance providers. We could easily fall into conflict of interest, and we want to be seen as, and we try to be, not only be seen, but we try to be as neutral as possible in that regard. That's why I don't want to mention names of companies here, but I'm very happy to include in this presentation our publication on this topic, which mentions companies that you can go to and request this service. Maybe, Alex, if it's easy for you, while I keep explaining, can you please send the participants the link to that publication? It's called Your Path to Third-Party Verification.
Okay, great.
Okay, perfect. So thank you for your questions. Please keep them coming. That's what makes the presentation more lively and interesting. So let's move on to the second pillar. If you remember, let me go back here. There were 4 pillars in terms of content of the advanced criteria. So we touched on third-party verification. Now we're going to see the implementation of the 10 principles. Again, this text is super small. I don't pretend, I don't want you guys to have to read it here. I just put it there as a visual picture for you to have as to how these criteria are organized. So in this pillar of the implementation of the 10 principles into the strategies and operations of the company, we have criteria 1 through 14. They touch on robust management and policies and procedures for each one of the issue areas. As you might know, this is again going back to our basic understanding of COP and of the Global Compact. We work on 4 main issue areas. They are human rights, labor, environment, and anti-corruption. And for each one of the issue areas, the criteria requests that the company has commitments. It can be through strategies or policies, that it has management systems, that is actually to implement, to do something in the company, and monitoring and evaluation mechanisms. So for each issue area, those 3 topics are required. The next pillar in terms of the content of our advanced report is taking action in support of broader UN goals and issues. This is basically support to sustainable development. As it has been very highlighted recently, many times in the United Nations discussions on the post-2015 agenda, the private sector and companies specifically have an enormous role in supporting sustainable development. That's why we have included some criteria in this area. The last pillar of our advanced criteria is the governance aspect. Criteria 19 through 21 touches on this. It includes the responsibility of the CEO of the company, the responsibility of the board of directors in adopting and overseeing sustainability activity, and lastly, it also touches on how stakeholders should be involved in the whole process. So these are the 4 pillars. Now, in terms of examples, as let me go back to one of my graphs here. Let's take this one. I mentioned there are globally 7% of reports at the advanced level and 4% in the MENA region. These are reports that you can find online. They are publicly available. Anyone interested in knowing who is an advanced company and how they have done it in their report, maybe as an example to follow, they can find this information through our website. If we have time at the end, I will be happy to show everybody how that is done in the Global Compact website. Okay, and the last part of my presentation, I think we have made some good progress and I can go into this, is the COP submission practice. This part is a little bit tedious, so I'll try to make it as fast as possible, but also as comprehensive. So all the discussion that we had before on what it is to be advanced, what it means, what is required, it will have no effect if you guys don't submit the report properly through our website. It's as simple as that. Some companies, and I see it every day in my job, some companies go all out into implementing the principles, putting a great report, and then what do? They mail it via post mail to me, to my desk. And then I'm sitting here with this great book, hard copy book that has pictures and everything very nice. However, that company did not achieve the advanced level because they never did so online. So that is why this part of the presentation is important. So to submit the report online, you have to first log into our website. You use your username or password. If you forgot it, you can contact your local network and they will be able to help you with that information. As soon as you log in, you will see this page, and in order to submit your report, you will have to click on COPs over here. Then you will have to click on Add New Communication on Progress. And here the system gives you a couple options. Do you want to do your regular COP submission? This will allow you to send your COP at the active level. So if you remember, we had the 3 categories. The lower category was a learner, where the COP didn't meet the requirements. The second one was active. The COP met the minimum requirements. The third one was advanced. So in our case, because in this case, this group, I'm hoping we all want to achieve the advanced level. So we would click on here, on the advanced level. Here, these slides show you if you had clicked over here, the COP submission, this is what you would see, the GC Active, where it says here GC Active. But since we are pursuing the GC Advanced level, this is what we will see. It will give you, I don't intend for you to read this. Again, it's very small text, but it's some instructions. It describes what it is the advanced level. Then you have to click down here where it says qualify your COP for the advanced level. Then the system asks a series of questions. Some of these questions, many of them actually do not have an effect on the level of your COP. For example, the system asks you what is the title of your COP. It doesn't matter what title you have for your COP. It will not affect the level of your report. You can type in any title that, of course, this is public information, so my recommendation is that you choose a sensible title, not some crazy title. Then the system asks, how do you share your report with your stakeholders? Again, this question does not affect your classification within our system. the dates of the information covered in your report. Again, no effect on your classification. And then from here on, these questions do affect the level that your report will achieve. So it asks over here, does your report include a statement from your CEO supporting the Global Compact? Yes or no? And then, does your report include description of actions in the 4 issue areas? Yes or no? If you click yes, you are in good shape to achieve either the active or the advanced level. If you click no in any of these, that immediately becomes a flag for our system, and it says this report is incomplete. This report is going to very likely be a learner report. Then as you continue in the GC, let's focus only on the right-hand side of the screen for now, because we are trying to achieve the GC advanced level. You will see on the left-hand side of your screen these blue tabs. You have to click on each one of those, and these tabs will show you the criteria under each one of the pillars that we just discussed. So criterion 9, and then the best practices, it asks you to click which practices your report meets. There's a little information bubble next to some of the best practices. It's just additional information. It explains what the best practice refers to, and so on and so forth. Again, I've mentioned this before in this presentation, but let's make one last reminder. How do you guys meet a criterion in our system? The way to meet a criterion is to fulfill at least one best practice. If you don't meet any best practice, if your report doesn't meet any best practice, then the criterion has not been met, and consequently, your report will not be advanced. So what happens if you try to do the whole advanced questionnaire, and it turns out that you did not meet one of the best practices? Then this is fine. The system will just qualify your COP as an active, and it will show in the public profile of your company that you tried to achieve the GC advanced level, but that you are missing one of the components. So there's no harm in trying to achieve the advanced level, even if you at the end don't achieve that level. At the end of all the content questions, so you went through the 4 pillars, etc., the system asks you to submit your PDF file. Every single COP submission must have a PDF attached to it. It's the report. There's where the information is included. It also allows you to provide links. Link is optional. PDF is not optional. If you do not attach a PDF, the submission is not complete. Then at the end, when you have uploaded your report and included any links if you wish to, then you have to click submit. And then it says, the system asks you, are you sure you want to submit? Because once you submit, there's no going back. There's no way for you to go back and modify your submission. So if you are not sure that you want to submit it, click cancel and go revise, go through the process again. But if you're sure, then click OK. This is how it would look like. This is what your stakeholders will see in the page of your report. They will see, this is an example, by the way. This is not a real company. We made up this company for the sake of this example. So it will show how the company achieved the GC advanced level through its COP. It gives access to the files that the company attached, so any person can click and go straight to your report. And then on a series of check marks, it indicates which of the criteria and best practices your company has achieved. and which one it has also not achieved. This is the profile of the company, again in a different view, and the main message here is that any party can access the public profile of companies in our website. Not only that, so companies or stakeholders or anybody who's interested can go to our website and find your profile, but the other important thing about our COP is that we push this information to investors through platforms such as Bloomberg. Bloomberg is a service that gives data to financial investors. Our COP data is pushed through Bloomberg as well. So if an investor wants to see what companies in the Middle East have been reporting at the advanced level, which is actually something that happens pretty often, they go to their Bloomberg terminal and they download the data as to what are those companies reporting at that level. So that's why it is so important that you guys, when you submit your report, you make sure it's complete, accurate information, because stakeholders are actually looking at this data. They are downloaded the reports and taking a look and making decisions based on this data. Now, before we go into our checklist, Alex, do we have any questions?
We do have one last question that relates again to the external assessment. And I'm going to give this to you, and the question is, are ISO certification bodies considered to be COP auditing authorities?
Okay, that is a very good question. Thank you for that. And the short answer is yes. We have, as a description of as part of our description of third-party verification, we have the component of a credible third party. So it says third-party verification is a process through which information is reviewed by a credible third party. And then we proceed to define what is a credible third party. And a credible third party is any actor, outsider, it has to be an outsider from the company, not directly associated with the company, and who has technical and reasonable good expertise on the topic that they are evaluating. So under that definition of credible third party and of external verification, the ISO certification bodies are one of the perfect examples to conduct that activity. Now, when you mentioned ISO, I remembered one very important part that I didn't mention before here. Many companies around the world and also in the MENA region are using other reporting guidelines to create their reports. For example, they use GRI, the Global Reporting Initiative, who very recently came out with their G4 guidelines. So companies usually use those guidelines to create their information and disclose their progress. There is no need, absolutely no need, for a company using other guidelines to do double work and to create double burden for them to fulfill their COP requirement. The GRI report can totally qualify as a COP as long as you make sure that that report is meeting all the requirements. We have some connection documents. That is also something that is missing in this presentation. I will make sure to include it before distributing the presentation. Our connection document explains exactly how a COP relates, an advanced COP relates to the G4 or to the G3.1 for those companies that are still using G3.1. So basically, you can use your GRI report to complete your COP. There's no need for you to go and do double work for that. I hope, is there any question related to that? I know that's always some concern that companies have about other reporting guidelines. Alex, any question on that?
Nope, it seems like we don't have any questions.
Okay, perfect. So let's go into our checklist. We are 47 minutes into the presentation, so I think we're doing good time in case you guys have more questions. For checklist, please submit your annual COP on time. As I mentioned before, some companies relax and they think they still have a lot of time, and then suddenly the minute they close their eyes, their deadline has passed and they are labeled as non-communicating in our database, and that's not a good thing to do. As I mentioned, investors are looking at this data. Stakeholders are accessing our COP in massive amounts every day. So please do not let your company to fall within the non-communicating category. Secondly, please familiarize yourself with the advanced criteria. This presentation will give you the basic tools. It will help you to understand the content, the logistical aspects, how to submit it. So become familiar with the criteria and try to report at that level. Thirdly, set an example in your local network. Get involved with your local network. You guys in the Gulf states you are very lucky because you have a good local network. They are engaged, they are knowledgeable, so they are completely capable of addressing your questions and helping you. So get engaged with your local network. And I think that is my message for now. I have included here a list of resources. If you click on any of these links, it will take you to a different important resource. I will include here the one that I mentioned before about third-party verification. And thank you very much for being. I'm going to do a round of questions one last time to see if there's if more questions have come in, Alex.
No, Anna, no questions have come in.
Okay. Perfect. So thank you very much. Here are contact information for your local network. And then Alexandra has been helping me today with the questions. Thank you very much. Here's her contact information. She's the relationship manager, also based in New York, but she's in charge of the MENA region. So any question you might have, she will be happy to answer. In terms of reporting, specifically reporting questions, it would be me, Ana Blanco. I'm reporting manager in New York. Again, thank you so much for participating, and we look forward to receiving your advance reports. Have a good evening for you in the Gulf states. Bye-bye.
Thank you very much, Anna. That was wonderful, great, very detailed. I hope all our participant listeners have managed to get clarifications on issues that were maybe not clear for them before. I hope now it is clear for them and they know the procedures and the processes required. And as you mentioned, should anyone of our participants today have any question, any clarification, please don't hesitate to contact any of the names that you see on the screen in front of you.
Thank you so much, Habiba, and keep up the good work in your region.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye, Alexandra.